Have you already registered at Wikisana?
Dear viewers, a very warm welcome to our today's format, Visit. And thank you very much for all the numerous letters from which I have chosen one again today. And I thank you very much, Bernard, you wrote to me. And you write, Dear Mrs. Wiechel, in one of your videos your email address was displayed. I now take it upon myself to ask you a question. Recently, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Since then, I have been busy going crazy over the swamp of the internet with an endless number of partially legal treatment methods. To be honest, I don't know what to do. The symptoms are still in the acceptable range, but the fear of what may come now is already great. The symptoms are, and so on. I have been 60 for a year now. I got married for the second time and it was not my intention to burden my wife. I have seen or I have the question I have had methylphenidate for several years. You write that you have suffered from an ADS symptomatology over a period of time and have not taken this medication regularly, but sometimes. But it has serious side effects. You have read that, and what you have not seen in all your research was that this medication can also cause Parkinson's. I thank you very much, Bernard, for your request and I am happy to answer it. The person who says that Parkinson's is a disease with the corresponding symptomatic picture, that was Dr. Parkinson. And it is nothing more than a disease picture, which we describe and verify as such. And then the big Damocles sword hangs over everyone, because the consequence of a therapy is the same for everyone. It is a disruption in the dopamine metabolism. And of course we are now working with drugs that have a direct impact here. With a more or less successful treatment, in the sense that we say Parkinson's is not curable. And we have a symptomatic therapy here. That's where we are today, 2023. You have also observed things and you have received the diagnosis. And it is good that if you do not get any answers from the medical side to your questions, that you make your own way. And the jungle is big. You need a sharp knife to really get through there. But life is also so complex, Bernard. And when we think of Rudiger Dolker and when we think of the whole question that man does not only consist of his physical, but also of his energetic, mental, then many questions come to the table here. Which of course also move in the direction what could I not have held on to in my life? What slipped out of my fingers? Please never underestimate a psychological burden in your life. If you want to answer now and now, also let a healing from a process happen. It is very difficult to believe that a drug alone has done something. It always needs the sum of many causes. Therefore, if the diagnosis has just been made, then I would put it aside. I would of course perceive my disorder. I would take a neurological symptomatology seriously. But I would now get on my way and question myself. And the first thing you have to promise me is that you trust a person who may be working on things with you in your life. I don't necessarily mean a psychologist. I mean a person who is able to look deep into your soul, who may be able to bring you into a retreat, or who is also working with you on things to do with a psychologically trained therapist, and who may be relieving you at this moment. There may be things in your life that just happened. Who wanted the divorce? Which two people could not continue this path together? Did I leave? Did she leave? How was the situation with the children? These are all things that have done something with you in this life. And if this also affects a level that is still very foreign to you, then you should just get down to these things and work on them. Believe me, psychological regulation blockades are also a major factor in a change in the organism. My perception of life changes my body chemistry. That's one thing. The other thing is, and I'll get to your medication in a moment, that the medication did not even apply to the cause of the ADS. That's something I find very sad, that you describe this medication as having many side effects, but it doesn't. The side effect note honestly says, unwanted effects. That means, every side effect is an effect. I have to weigh up the risks and benefits very carefully here. And just the effects of insomnia, anxiety, nervousness, appetite-related regulation, weight or size gain in the body with longer use with children, restlessness, anxiety, depression, irritability and abnormal behavior, as well as headaches, dizziness, dyskinesia and psychomotor hyperactivity. What is not included here? Diseases of the respiratory tract, cough, heart disease, arrhythmia. That means, if it says arrhythmia, it goes much further. Who is disturbing this autonomous regulation process of a heart? That's not a conscious beating. That's an adaptation to what I need in life through the autonomous nervous system, in a regulatory rhythm, in the provision of energy, in the provision of kalium and magnesium. Do I need strength? Do I need movement or do I need rest? The adaptation of the heart to life is crucial for my physical health. Heart arrhythmia in the sense of tachycardia, but also vessel diseases such as high blood pressure. The list is 2 pages long and I don't want to list everything, up to psychiatric diseases, behavioral, tactile hallucinations, up to liver dysfunction. And of course, this is a variety of observations that you have observed in the phase where you use a drug on test subjects or on the animal or whatever, and they have to occur here. But if I only see liver dysfunction, what does that mean? Yes, what does that mean? The liver is an organ. Do you really think that if I now take the liver values to such an extent that the liver can stay healthy? The liver is an organ that is of course responsible for the production of gallbladder. But gallbladder is important because gallbladder binds toxic things in the intestine, toxic elements such as heavy metals, lead, aluminum, cadmium. The liver is the one that produces all the nutrients, but also converts them and metabolizes them. Without nutrients, nothing in the body will run as it should. It is a great plan of nature that the liver is equipped with this ability to take over this power again. It is important to convert these nutrients into metabolites for cell renewal, for energy supply, for tissue renewal, for detoxification. Without nutrients, these cascades, these processes cannot take place at all. By forming the lipoproteins. Lipoproteins are the proteins that transport fats. LDL, HDL. Man says good and bad. Slowly. There is nothing good or bad here. Everything is important here. And then, of course, as transport proteins, they work. Once the fat brings cholesterol to the cell, because it is the most important membrane component. And of course, to bring these fats back, so that they are recycled. It is important to deliberately release the storage of vitamins and minerals when they are needed. Body-owned hormones, neurotransmitters, xenohormones, so through softening, all metabolic end products. Think of the uric acid from the protein metabolism. Scatol, ammonia, endotoxins, fragments of contaminated bacteria that simply slip through the intestinal mucosa. Everything is offered to the liver every day. The high toxins that we have in our environment today, I don't want to say that as a phrase, but they are partly packed in nanoparticles. The chemtrails that come from the sky, this high aluminum load that I breathe in. These are things that I have to take care of, one very specifically, and that is the liver. The liver monitors the entire blood flow, and the liver is the one that filters out. That provides the rejuvenation factors, that keeps an eye on the immune system and hormone production, that catalyzes the enzymes. Enzymes are always active substances that react from A to B. And that provides the cell components. A cell membrane is the brain of a cell. The cell communicates. All of this is the job of the liver. And when I see liver dysfunction, then I have to tell you honestly, out of this jungle of possibilities, and perhaps also your medication, it has caused damage. Otherwise, I would not develop a neurological disorder in the end. And there are many things involved. Not only do carbon monoxide contribute, but also so-called xenohormones, that is, softeners that act as hormone disruptors, like bisphenol A in a plaster. Phthalates, organic solvents, that's what you know, that the organophosphates are highly toxic. And there is a book that Americans wrote, Stop with Parkinson's. These are school physicians, these are university colleagues, who say, it can't be true that we still act as if we didn't know what Parkinson's is. If you read, What is Parkinson's? Idiopathic and diagnosis unknown, in the sense of, we don't know the causes. No, we already know so many causes that contribute to the fact that we ourselves, perhaps as doctors, would imagine standing there in this jungle. But I have the impression, my dear fellow colleagues, that they close their eyes under the motto, where should we start? We don't do anything to occupy ourselves. We can't talk to each other either, because we don't do any research. I recently had a conversation with a patient who had become clear to me. He said he was very interested. And when I started to report, you can forget everything. There are no studies, it's not confirmed. What can I say? This book shows quite well that these organophosphates that are used in agriculture as pesticides or herbicides are highly toxic. And when they are highly toxic, I have to tell you, then it's at our expense, us humans, by now. I can only advise you that we may also critically assess many things to see whether all of this is really worth it, because the health of humans is quite at stake. Back to your medication. And I'll come back to you later to say, what do you do with your liver first? Because liver values that you might have sent me might not have shown anything. But whether to expect the functional state of the liver to be weakened, whether the enzymes are high because the liver cell is destroyed. But I can't assume that a neurological disorder will develop if I assume that the liver has remained in its strength and that the extent of its functionality has not been overburdened by the stress. In addition, and I did some research, the drug, and you said you took it a few years ago, back then it might still have the titan in it, Titanus E171. Titan dioxide is now banned in Switzerland, but titan is everywhere where it has to look white, so especially white, beautiful teeth. If there is titan dioxide in the tooth cream, then please don't buy it. So in Switzerland it was banned years ago. But where was it in everything? It was in sweets, it was in chewing gum, and of course it was in all white coating as a dye. So of course also in tablets and capsules or in dragees. That is, it has been proven that it is a genetic toxicity. And this genetic toxicity means that the genetic material of the cell is destroyed. And this genetic toxicity can lead to carcinogenic effects. So this is not about Parkinson's, but about tumors. But here it becomes simply critical. What does that have to do with looking for a drug? Why doesn't such research go there and say, be careful, we are not allowed to allow this because of the genetic toxicity, because it has to done with mice and so on? No, it was really in all these things for years. And I really put all the drugs to the test years ago. And a lot of providers just got kicked out because I just don't want to work with the titan dioxide. Or the iron oxide. Iron oxide makes everything a little orange-red. Orange-red is also included in these drugs as a dye. It is a very simple dye that is used in the food industry. By the way, black olives, too. There is one type of olive that is offered by a biotrader. They are called olivos. These are really black by nature. But usually olives are also polluted with this iron oxide. And these starting materials, this iron oxide, are in confectionery, in sweets, in meat products and, as I said, also as a dye in the drugs. It was not immediately clear that the iron value was increasing. But you have to be aware of the fact that these iron oxides are packed in nanoparticles and they are in a micro size. And you can't prove these billionth particles. That means, it's a bit of a Russian roulette. And you're doing well if you see E171 and E172 for the other viewers, if you leave these things out of course. Parkinson's is a neurological disease and the key is the dopamine metabolism. That means, on the one hand, it will be necessary to examine the blood, as well as, for example, when you do an inosphoresis, on certain carbon, organophosphates, herbicides, pesticides, also heavy metals. Because then you are a long way off. The other thing is consequences. And if the consequences have led to toxicity, which may still be relevant to some people, then it must be clear now what my own detoxification performance is like and to what extent I can now start to help my body to become healthy. And that is of course a very big task that you are being challenged with. And please don't look at yourself as someone who didn't want it that way. And, man, body, I'm not happy with you at all because that wasn't my plan. But now facts have to be put on the table. And now you also need a colleague who is familiar with this thing and looks at the whole situation. And today, through vital field research, the possibility to look at whether the body is capable of detoxification at all. So don't just go and say, I have to detoxify, but first think about your own detoxification. Take a look at your gut. Do a big so-called metabolome at BioVis and look at these neurotransmitters. How far has there been a change in neurotransmitter metabolism here? How far has the body used replacement regulators? How far has it taken other metabolic pathways via tryptophan and curionine? That means that we can then also come to the mitochondrial energy output of the cell from such processes. If I can produce enough, I will eventually reach my deficit. If not enough dopamine can be dismantled, too much is produced over the years. Is Parkinson's disease perhaps a sign that the body is able to respond to this high dopamine with a lower production? There are so many questions that need answers. But fact number one, and because of the topic, is that there can also be a disruption in liver metabolism. I recommend this to all patients with neurodegeneration, because the liver is the most important thing that we have to look at here. The liver is an organ that has an incredible number of membrane structures. That means that the concentration of these cell membranes is a range of 33 square meters. And these membrane structures communicate. It's like a language. And the whole task of these cell walls, the liver cells, is actually necessary. And for that it needs phospholipids. I would like to tell you a few more things about this topic, so that you immediately start using phospholipids. Phospholipids are also very high in egg yolks, but phospholipids that you take in improve these membrane receptors. Ultimately, they also improve, if I now have pathological liver values that may indicate allotot or acetot or gamma-GT a little higher. They help the liver cell to close again. And they help to accelerate this detoxification metabolism and to bring the general state of the body back, by rebuilding the liver in a functional strength and also in a structural strength. These phospholipids are not only components of the liver cells, but also of all the neuronal myelin fibers, the nerve cells, where synapses are in between. Dopamine always has to dock on synapses. This will move in a large regeneration process. And the liver then has the possibility to quickly or faster bring the whole body into a certain reconvalescence and regeneration, but also repair. Just think that your medication is one of 600, which are all harmful to the liver. How many people who are now watching us say, "Hey, now I'm taking a close look at what's on my plate." And sometimes you don't even have to look in there. It's just that every drug I take in has to be dismantled from the liver first, detoxified and kidney-like. And if the liver gets more and more into this situation that it can no longer take this process from us, then the cell membrane structure changes. This is devastating for the liver and of course for any other cell, because the cell can no longer communicate with it. And with that, it is actually no longer capable of communicating and of its own cell metabolism. So to activate growth, regeneration, cell maturation, and cell proliferation and, above all, liver detoxification, you need phospholipids. You can do that very easily in a form of up to 4.6 grams per day, but also very, very easily with egg yolks. 2, 3 egg yolks a day, or even more. But do it. And the second recommendation I would like to give you at the end is, please, lithium, low dose, so 10 milligrams of lithium. One of the most valuable super trace elements for brain regeneration. I don't always start with therapeutic options, I have to tell you, Bernard. I always start by understanding. And the causes for Parkinson's are perhaps very certain here in the accumulation of others, like perhaps with a gentleman you know or with a lady you know. So don't let yourself be disturbed at all, but in gratitude, accept the state that you are in a subjectively good state. But maybe take one or the other advice now, in this jungle, to look for people who are just as little or who are just as confused, but who also take things very seriously and build the next step for you. And then you go step by step forward. You can't want everything right away. Believe me, it took 20 years. And I don't want it to take 20 years now. But I am grateful to know that you are someone who is at the beginning of a path. And please understand that we are spreading concern in medicine today, because we haven't done anything else for 30 years. We all doctrine the same diagnosis, if it fits. And we almost all do the same therapy until we can do electrostimulation. but there is no room for causes. And that's why many people don't see what I can observe. And my motto is healing needs truth. And if anyone heals here at all, then it is the inside, then it is the power, then it is also the faith in my healing and the hope in my healing. These are not farces. These are programs that steer you in the right direction. Everything that occupies you with fear, with resignation, with a certain frustration, it will not carry you. And that's why I hope that I have given a little light to the dark. In this sense, I thank you very much. The show is over again. I am looking forward to next week. Whenever you have questions or would like to give a medical advice from a holistic point of view, please send them to Visite at QS24.tv. And in this sense, I wish you all a very, very nice next week and look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye.